Welcome to ASAP in the morning, where we are on a very, as you can see, streamlined version of the show. As this is my first time producing, Freddie. I love how you gave me this grandiose moment to debut my skill sets. Dustin, stat guy, how you doing this morning, my brother?
Doing swell, doing swell.
All right, man. Hey, listen, lots of things are going on in the world of sports. I want to kind of break it out real quick. Just the controversy that's going on with the Pro Bowl. I know that's not our topics list, but I'm going to kind of start that off first, and then we'll go into the topics that we have going on for today. This Pro Bowl to me seemed very artificial. It didn't seem, very genuine. It's almost I'd almost rather just see the skills challenge than the actual game itself. What was your opinion of the Pro Bowl, Dustin?
Honestly, the skills challenge is my favorite part of everything. Just because if you look at the NHL All-Star Game, you look at Major League Baseball, you look at NBA, they all have a skills challenge leading up into the actual All-Star Game itself. So for the NFL, it kind of brings that back. I love that aspect of it because it gave fans kind of a different thing to kind of get excited for the Pro Bowl because you were seeing other things. In terms of the Pro Bowl itself, I'm at the point now where they should just play flag football and play 7-on-7 or 8-on-8 to make it a little bit more challenging. Because if you even watch the Pro Bowl, they don't even try to tackle anymore at this point. They just literally try to grab you and hold you for 1 second until the ref blows the whistle. They're not even trying to bring you down anymore.
Yeah, for me, like I said, to me it was very artificial. I think even J.J. Watt came out and said that he saw walkthroughs that were more intense than the Pro Bowl itself. And then I go and I see Deion Sanders posting that, back in his day, the Pro Bowl actually meant something, that, people took it as a badge of honor to go out there and showcase their talents and what they could do. I mean, it was a much more competitive sport. I want to believe that, or I really believe that the way sports is going nowadays is very much business-like. Nobody wants to get hurt. Nobody wants to put themselves out there, not for $40,000 to the loser or $80,000 to the winner. And I get that. I get that nobody wants to jeopardize, their long-term deals if they're going for a long-term deal, this, that, and the other. I mean, all of it makes sense. It's just for the fan. I think for the fan watching the game, from our perspective, it just sucks. It's just not even worth watching. I'd rather you just name the team and say, hey, I made the Pro Bowl. Give me a little skills challenge and call it good. Or even, like you said, it become, or I guess I've heard it before, it's just make it a touch football game, and it just is what it is. It's touch football, you know what I mean? Yeah, to me, it's so watered down these days. I think I'd rather watch the All-Star game in the NBA than watch the Pro Bowl in football.
Yeah, I mean, you could even make it 7-on-7 too, because if you made it 7-on-7, you're going to have more space for each of those players to cover, which would make things a little bit more interesting too, because you would have guys like Tyreek Hill. There would be nobody that would catch him in 7-on-7, and then you'd have all these other players that would have to play kind of out of position just to try to make up the space that they're losing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's got to be a different way that the NFL can approach that, and that's probably something I would be talking about in the I don't know. I guess the Players Association, maybe they can have a meeting with the owner, but something needs to definitely change. I think if you want to give this Pro Bowl any kind of validity, otherwise, to me, it's just a sham. Moving on, though, let's talk about the NBA trades so far. Who won, who lost. I really kind of think that Sacramento got a good deal getting Sabonis, but I know you probably don't think it that way. I know Halliburton. I think Halliburton was in that trade for they went to and Buddy Hield, I believe, was in that trade going toward Indiana. What's your thought process, that guy?
I mean, the Sabonis part of the things works out very well for Sacramento because they're adding a guy that can play both the 4 and the 5. He's a stretch player that likes to knock down three-pointers, so that helps him in that side of things. But then you got to remember that Justin Holiday, who was also sent to Sacramento in that trade, is not vaccinated. He said he's also not going to get vaccinated, so that means that he can't even play at Sacramento's home games.
Right.
Already, part of the deal they already made isn't even going to work for them because they're getting a guy that they can use for like 12 or 13 games this year because he can't play the home games. Then you look at Indiana, Halliburton's a rising star. He's going to fit in very well over there. Buddy Hield's a good 3-point shooter. He's going to be able to give Indiana some 3-point shooting that they lost from Sabonis. So Indiana did well on that side of things. And then it also helps them because they sent Karis LeVert over to Cleveland earlier in the week. So now you bring in Halliburton, who can replace Karis LeVert. He's not going to give you the same production that LeVert did, but at least they're replacing some of the pieces they missed. Versus Sacramento, you're going to have Sabonis. And pretty much that's it, because you're not going to have Justin Holiday for a good portion of the season because he's not going to get vaccinated.
Yeah, and I get that. And then we move on to other trades that have happened. Who was it? I believe it was the Pelicans. They sent C.J. McCollum down to New Orleans, and I did not see who Portland got. Who did Portland get from that trade?
They got Josh Hart. I'll look that up. They got like 3 or 4 people. I think they could have got more than what they got too.
I know they got some picks, didn't they? Didn't they get I think they got a protected first round, I believe, and I think also maybe even a second round pick.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this, Dustin. For me, if you're Damian Lillard and you've been so loyal to this franchise and you put so much into it, do you feel like the franchise isn't being loyal back to Dame as much as he is to them, because they pretty much put themselves into rebuild mode almost, right?
Yeah, and if I'm Damian Lillard, I'm demanding a trade next year. I mean, he's already said that he has no desire to leave Portland, but it's evident that Portland is in a rebuild mode right now. It's evident that they have no plans to contend this year because you traded away C.J. McCollum, Larry Nance Jr., and Tony Snell, and you get Josh Hart, who's not a bad player. Thomas Satoransky is a bench player at best. Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Didi Louzada, and then you get your draft pick. So really, Josh Hart and Nickeil Alexander-Walker are the only 2 relatively good players in that package. So now you have a team where Damian Lillard wants to compete, but they're not going to be competitive for another 2 or 3 years. So why would he want to stay at this point, knowing that he's going to waste another 2 or 3 years of his career waiting for Portland to get back to respectability?
Yeah, I agree with you, and that's why I felt like I think Dame is going to, at some point, he's going to want to request that trade. Then we look on to Cleveland, who got Karis LeVert, and Indiana got Rubio, which I thought Cleveland made out like a bandit, getting rid of a guy with an ACL tear and bringing in a guy like who's a true dog like Karis LeVert, and you're getting probably the same amount of shooting and things of that nature. Serious contender for the East.
It does, and the funny thing is they had Karis LeVert a couple of years ago, and then they actually traded him to Indiana 2 years ago because he was going through some cancer treatment because he had cancer and then came back from the cancer treatment. So he's actually just going back to where he originally was, and he's actually a better player now than what he was at the time that they traded him to Indiana. So you have a Cleveland team that has surprised everybody in the Eastern Conference. They go with the biggest starting lineup in the NBA. They have 3 players that are 6'11" or taller that all start. So they're a matchup nightmare for a lot of these teams, and they've just played miles better than what anyone expected, and now they're adding another significant scoring piece to that starting 5. Cleveland is a team that is going to make some noise in the postseason, and it's primarily because they are such a matchup problem for a lot of these teams, and now they just added an all-star caliber player in LeVert to that round.
Yeah, and I because that's what I really believe. I think that definitely Cleveland won this one. I think Indiana they're obviously just clearing cap space out to start over, I guess, fresh. But they didn't really even get? Did they even get any picks at all? Was there any picks?
No, I don't think so. And I think that's why they did the trade they did to get Halliburton and Buddy Hield, because they're not even going to be able to use Rubio this year because Rubio is hurt.
Right.
Basically, they traded more so for the future on this one just because Rubio is not going to be ready for next year, or up until next year. So they had to go and make another deal just to get enough pieces where they have still a valid roster.
Interesting. Okay.
I think New Orleans made out good too, just because we all know the situation with Zion right now. But now if Zion comes back healthy, New Orleans has Zion Williamson, they have Brandon Ingram, and they have C.J. McCollum. That's not a bad big 3.
No, it's not.
And Zion is 21, Brandon Ingram's 24, and McCollum's 29. So all 3 of them are going to be McCollum's in his prime already. Brandon Ingram's approaching his prime, and we don't know what we're going to get out of Zion yet. But all three of them together could do some damage in the Western Conference too. So that's a
No,
good move that New
absolutely.
Orleans is playing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I definitely agree with you on that, and I feel like that's kind of it's gonna be. I think for New Orleans to really see how this is gonna work, it's gonna be how Zion comes back from this injury. And quite honestly, I don't know how he's going to come back from this injury, man. I don't know, man. I think he's got 1 foot in and 1 foot out the door in New Orleans. So I don't know, man. I'm not really sold on the whole Zion experiment. I just don't see. I don't think that's going to come to fruition for New Orleans the way that I think they envisioned it when they first drafted him. What do you think about Zion in terms of him coming back and coming back at a high level? Obviously, he's not at a high level now, but can he get back to a high level playing with New Orleans?
I think he can just because he's athletically gifted enough to do it. I just don't think his body will be able to take the punishment that it took up until the injury. Because when you're 6'7", 280 pounds, and you're doing the stuff that he did at Duke, and you're doing the stuff that he did in high school, that's taking a toll on your body. Especially when you got like your lower leg injuries that you have, and all that constant weight falling onto your feet and on your knees, you're going to have to change the way you play. And unless you can develop a consistent jump shot, I don't know if we're going to get the same Zion that we had last year. I don't know if we're going to get the same Zion that we saw at Duke. He needs to be able to adjust his game on the fly a little bit because his body's not going to be able to take the punishment that he puts it through.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And another thing that hasn't happened yet, and I think what is today? I believe today is the 9th, so we got one more day left before the trade deadline is officially done. You know what? I mean, and we still haven't seen anything with Ben Simmons, and I don't think we're gonna see anything with Ben Simmons. Harden, same thing. I know there was some trade rumors with Harden, but now Nash has vehemently come out and said that no, he's happy being in Brooklyn. Harden hasn't said anything to the contrary. Do you think there's going to be any more trades to happen before this end of the deadline comes tomorrow?
There is going to be some trades. I just don't know who the trades are going to be yet. Chicago needs to trade for a big. I know they're rumored to be in on Jakob Poeltl from San Antonio, and San Antonio gave Chicago an offer, and Chicago gave San Antonio an offer, and San Antonio rejected it. So the Bulls are in talks with San Antonio about getting a big. I could see Russell Westbrook getting traded somewhere. It's just a matter of where is he going to go and who's going to want to take him on for that contract. I expect tomorrow to be a very busy day in terms of the trade deadline. Today, I think will be a little bit quieter just because we saw a lot of action yesterday and we saw a lot of action on Monday. But I think tomorrow, especially the last 2-3 hours leading up to when the deadline is going to be very busy in the NBA, and you're going to see a lot of pieces move. There might not be a lot of significant like star pieces moved around, but I think we're going to see a lot of those bench pieces and a lot of those reserve pieces moving around for teams that are either in the playoffs or they're close to the playoffs that just kind of want to round out their roster a little bit better.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm seeing, or that's what I'm thinking too. In a lot of the ways, is I feel like there's going to be probably a few more trades, but I think that I don't know about LA, man. I think LA is panicking a little bit. I think they want to make a trade, but I don't know who they'd be able to make a trade for to help that team out. I mean, we've discussed a million times Russell Westbrook for John Wall, something along those lines, but Houston's going to want a little bit more back for in terms of picks, and LA just doesn't have it to offer, at least not right away. They think the next first round pick isn't available until like 2024. So I don't know if LA can get anything done between now and the deadline. Do you see LA moving anything?
They have to move Westbrook. I mean, you look at how the team has played when Westbrook goes to the bench. The team plays better. So they're starting to show that they can win without Westbrook, and they don't need Westbrook.
Right.
They need more pieces around Davis, more pieces around James. So getting rid of Westbrook gives them that best option to get those more pieces. I don't know who's going to take him. I really don't. Yes, you can trade him for John Wall, but is Houston going to want to take on the contract that Russell Westbrook has with him, knowing that John Wall's contract is very similar? You could try to trade him to Philadelphia for Ben Simmons, but Is Philadelphia going to want to deal with Russell Westbrook when they're actually in the top 4 in the Eastern Conference right now and playing very well without even having Simmons on the floor? There's really not too many teams at this point that can take on Russell Westbrook's contract, and the ones that can are going to be asking a lot from the Lakers, where if the Lakers do part ways with him, they're going to lose a lot more from that team also, which is going to hurt them in the long run.
Hey, do you think if you're the Lakers, I thought about this for a minute. It seems like sometimes the more that Westbrook plays, the worse he looks. You know, I mean, you can take the other night when he went 1 for 10. Do you just kind of maybe, do you think to protect his value, you just sit him on the bench until you can trade him, just so he doesn't keep playing himself, worse than what he's already doing?
I would sit him on the bench in crunch time, like during the fourth quarter. But you have to start him knowing that you have to play him knowing that he's making $47 million.
Right.
You can't just let that sit on your bench and just take up space. You have to give him some minutes, even if it's only like 25 to 30 minutes as opposed to close to 40. You have to get as much as you can get out of him in those first 3 quarters. And then once you get to that fourth quarter, if you want to sit him, that's a different story. Just because if you're winning or if you have a chance to win, he's a defensive liability. You don't want him on the floor. And he makes too many mental mistakes in crunch time that can affect your rhythm and offense. So if I'm the Lakers and I know and I realize that I have to hang on to him at this point, I try to get as much as I can out of him during those first 3 quarters and then just kind of go point guard by committee in that fourth quarter and just stick with the hot hand.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that as well. It's going to be interesting to see what the Lakers can pull off, or if they can pull off anything before the deadline. That's for sure. So I guess we're going to have to continue to wait to see what transpires between now and tomorrow night. I believe it's tomorrow night is when it ends. So lots are going to happen between now and then. Moving on, though, we got, like I said, trouble in purple and gold paradise. Unnamed Laker players have voiced their thoughts on the roster. That's been going on. What do you think about that, Dustin?
That just kind of brings us back to what we were just talking about in regards to Russell Westbrook. Whoever these unnamed players are, they know that the roster they have right now is not working. And they know that from the talent side of things, you have guys like LeBron James and Anthony Davis that can carry this team to a deep playoff run if they have a piece of the run. So they're just trying to kind of send a message like, hey, we need to improve this roster because we still have a talent there to make a deep run. But now it's just a matter of, now that this report kind of got more publicized and kind of got out there, how is this going to affect everything in the Lakers roster? And knowing that there are players on this team that know the roster's not good enough the way it is right now.
Yeah. And at some point, LeBron needs to come out and just take ownership over this fiasco that he's created with the Lakers. I mean, Jenny Buss and them, Pelinka, they kind of gave LeBron, lay of the land to pick out the roster that he wanted to play with, this, that, and the other. And LeBron, for my opinion, if you're a true leader, he needs to come out and kind of take a little ownership of where the Lakers are now and, what his role was in that. What do you think about that? Do you think he's not taking enough responsibility or what?
I mean, LeBron really has never shouldered any responsibility for anything that he's done in his professional career. And yes, there's times that he should have. Yes, there's times that obviously it wasn't his fault. But he was the one that wanted Russell Westbrook. He was the one that wanted to bring Westbrook to Los Angeles. So this is the one time that he kind of needs to shoulder the blame and be like, I messed up. Russell Westbrook and myself do not fit well together, and we can't play together. As far as everything else with the roster, I really don't think you can blame him for that just because the Lakers knew what it was going to take to get Westbrook here. They knew how much Westbrook was getting paid, and they knew that they were going to have to lose guys like Caruso and lose guys like Lonzo Ball over the last couple of years just to kind of afford to take on a guy like Westbrook. So that's kind of the domino effect when you have a guy like James saying, hey, I want Russell Westbrook to come here. And then the Lakers realizing, well, if he comes here, then we got to get rid of these guys because otherwise we have no way to report him.
Right. And I really feel like you've got to be thinking that, the other guys are probably complaining about I'm sure Anthony Davis has probably said something to Bron about the lineup, in terms of what they're doing. So Yeah, that's just a hot mess over in LA, man. Honestly, and I think they made the playoffs, but I think that if you're gonna do anything in the playoffs, and I don't really think they can, but if you want to have a shot in the playoffs, I think you're gonna have to limit Westbrook and probably go more with be that Austin Reeves guy, probably run him a little bit more in the offense, just to facilitate the ball to AD and Bron. That's
Yeah.
and then we turn over to Major League Baseball. It's interesting. What do you think about this whole steroid? The whole steroid thing. For me, is I think it ran out, but there's no way that they don't reinstate it. I don't think it's just going to be like, okay, it ran out, and now we're just going to go run amok and go back to steroid revolution and things like that. I think it's going to get re-implemented. What do you think?
So here's the funny thing about this. You just had the Hall of Fame vote, and Barry Bonds was not get voted in. But everybody knows that he's going to get in the Hall of Fame one way or another because you have that Veterans Committee that can vote players in that were left off the roster. And a lot of the people on that Veterans Committee played with Barry Bonds and pretty much knew that he was going to be a Hall of Famer regardless of the steroids or not. So the fact that I think Major League Baseball realizes that Bonds is going to get in one way or another is kind of the same thing with Roger Clemens. You kind of have to. I wouldn't say you stop testing them, but you kind of have to let it slide at this point just because baseball knew that steroids was around back then. Baseball knew that almost every player or a large chunk of the league was taking steroids back then.
Right.
But they weren't going to do anything about it because if it wasn't for Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, Barry Bonds, and a lot of the guys that were hitting 60, 70 homers back then, baseball would have been dead. Those guys helped bring baseball back to what it is. The kind of Major League Baseball kind of brushed it under the rug for at least 10, 15 years. And then when it got to the point where baseball was popular again, then they kind of took the rug out and basically said, well, these guys all did this, these guys all did this, these guys all did this. So in a way, they were kind of being hypocrites to what helped baseball come back. Because if it wasn't for the steroids, in my opinion, baseball was dead. But because the steroids helped bring it back, baseball wasn't going to do anything to change it. And I've always been one of the people that have always said steroids make you stronger and they help you heal from injuries faster. But if you can't square up a baseball and hit it, steroids ain't going to help you at all. And if you're a pitcher taking steroids and you can't find the strike zone, steroids aren't going to help you at all. So you still have to be good enough to hit the baseball, and you still have to be a good enough pitcher to throw strikes. Otherwise, steroids aren't going to do anything for you.
Right. And that's really, I guess that's where I stand as well on that. I feel like, if you're going to, and this is where they have to reinstate it for Major League Baseball, because if they didn't reinstate it, then they're going to have to go back and, like you said, let Barry Bonds in, because now it's legal again. So if it's legal, then how do you not let him in? So I think, Major League Baseball, has to reinstate that. But at the same time, steroids or no steroids, Bonds should be in. And I think the Veterans Committee is going to get that right at some point.
Same with Clemens, too, because Clemens is going to be putting up numbers that Nolan Ryan put up if he wasn't going to have the same amount of strikeouts and everything like that. But Roger Clemens was the 90s and early 2000s versions of Nolan Ryan. So the fact that he's being left off, too, just because he was involved in this era is just a slap in the face for him, because he was a good pitcher even before this era even started.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. But yeah, in terms of Major League Baseball, how do you see this lockout thing going? We've talked about this a million times. I think the season's getting affected. There's no way the season doesn't get affected by it, because once the players dug themselves in and basically said no to mediation, in my opinion, that means they're willing to go the full 9. And if they're willing to go the full 9, do you think the owners cave in and give them what they want? Or do you think that they're going to dig their feet in as well and then really possibly lose out on the whole season?
At this point, I think they're going to lose out on the whole season just because catchers and pitchers are supposed to report on Monday.
Right.
Obviously, they're not reporting on Monday, which means spring training is going to be delayed. The delay of spring training now is probably going to carry into the regular season. And we've talked about this numerous times on this show. Baseball's gone 2 straight years where they've lost revenue. You've had 2020 where there was nobody in the seats at all until the World Series when they had minimal attendance. So they went the entire 2020 season without any revenue. Then you look at last year, all spring training, you had 50% attendance, and basically up until June 1st, you had 50% attendance. So 33% of their season last year was lost revenue also.
Right.
Baseball cannot afford to go another season with lost revenue. And right now, as the way things sit, they are going to have lost revenue because spring training is going to be delayed if it even happens. And that's taking away 30 games of attendance for everybody. They've already approached the part of this lockout where they're going to be losing revenue for a third straight year. I don't know how baseball is even going to be able to recover from this. Even if the season starts on time, I don't know how baseball's going to be able to recover from this. They're going to lose money again for a third straight year. Yes, they're going to make enough money to survive, but how many fans are going to want to continue to watch baseball knowing that this is really the only sport that has had this lockout problem? They had it multiple times. You've seen the NBA go through it once. You've seen the NFL go through it once. But baseball's gone through it like 3 times. And the kind of money that these players make, like these baseball players get paid $300, $400 million.
Right.
So there's money to be had in this sport. Otherwise, these players wouldn't be getting these contracts. So the fact that they're arguing over money, the fact that the owners can't agree with some of the things the players want and the players can't agree with some of the things that the owners want, you're getting to the point now where they're never going to agree on anything. And if they can't agree on anything, it's just going to be a train wreck and just a ticking time bomb to when people explode. And I think we're getting to that point now where there is going to be no baseball, where players are just going to say, screw it. We'll scratch what we're supposed to make this year, and we'll force the owners to cave. And at some point, the owners are going to have to cave because they can't afford to lose more money than they already have. So the longer this goes, the more likely the owners are to cave because they're going to want to get as much money as possible.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think that, for me, baseball, and this is where the owners I don't know, but I'm sure maybe they do understand this. I'm sure that the commissioners got to understand this from a marketing standpoint. Baseball has lost a lot of relevancy. And what worries me is, can they survive? I mean, they probably will survive another lockout, but you got to believe it's going to have a major impact on the game if they do lose a season because of it. I just don't know how they recoup financially from, I got to imagine that the fans are not going to want to support it as much. They weren't really supporting it for some of the smaller market teams to begin with. Honestly, you can see a lot of empty stadiums out there, across the board. What do you think?
Yeah, baseball, obviously you have teams like the Cubs, the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Dodgers, and a lot of those teams that are never going to struggle with it. They're always going to sell out, or they're going to be close to selling out no matter what type of product is on the field. But then you have teams like the Marlins, the Rays, the Orioles, the Pirates, who struggle to get 10,000 people per game. Tampa Bay especially had one of the best seasons, if not their best season in franchise history this year. And they did not have a single home game with over 15,000 people last year.
Right.
Once the playoffs started, they started getting their 25 to 30,000. But the playoffs, you get 10 games at home, maybe 12. When you have 81 games at home during the regular season and you can't get more than 14, 15,000 people with a winning product, that's a concern. So now you have to look at all these teams that have attendance issues as it is. Those issues are going to get worse and worse. And that's going to get to the point where you might see teams be forced to relocate because they just can't support a team in that market anymore. Tampa Bay, to me, is the one team that, despite having such a successful franchise, they're going to be forced to relocate because they don't have a new stadium. They can't fill the stadium they have right now, and they can't afford to play in a market that doesn't support them. Same thing with Oakland. Oakland's been a great team the last decade, but their stadium's a crap hole. It's one of the worst stadiums in baseball, and they can't fill it, so they're going to be forced to relocate too, just because owners, despite having such a good franchise, they're losing a large portion of their revenue because they can't put fans in the seats.
Right. I definitely agree with you, and that's kind of my fear for. I love the game of baseball, but I definitely feel like it has lost a lot of relevancy. I think baseball has really lost the African American demographic as a whole. I mean, I think that was a huge loss for them. I mean, you obviously you have African or you have Dominican players come in that are black, things like that. But African Americans, I really think you're seeing a big decline here in the stateside. African Americans not really taking an interest in playing the game of baseball like they used to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand it because African Americans were very, if you look at the late 90s, especially Barry Bonds, Sammy Sosa, Ken Griffey Jr., a lot of the big stars back then were African American. And yes,
right.
You had your Vladimir Guerrero too. But unless you had your Latino-born, Caribbean-born players back then, but it wasn't until 2010 when they started to kind of make their presence in this league. And now I'd say the league now is probably 40-45% Latino-born players, 40-45% American-born players, and then the remaining 10-15 are African-American players. So, I mean, the Latino-Caribbean side of things has really taken over the Major League Baseball landscape because they can turn pro at 14, 15 years old. They get if you look at a lot of these players like Fernando Tatis and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and a lot of the big Caribbean-born stars right now, a lot of them get drafted at 15, 16 years old.
Right.
So they're turning pro when they're still in high school. When you look at regular African-American-born players, regular American-born players, they can't turn pro until they're 18 when they finish high school. So a lot of these Latino-born players have a 2-year head start. So that's kind of why the market's kind of shifted in their favor, just because they can get started in professional ball 2-3 years sooner than anybody else.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, and I think that America, baseball was America's pastime, but like you said, we're only maybe 40% Americans even playing in the game now. I mean, now that it's almost becoming more international than it is, our actual home thing. And I don't know. I don't know how you get Americans to take more of an interest in baseball. I don't know. And that's why I think having this lockout, if it goes into the season, things like that don't exactly help out the cause.
It doesn't. And you have to look at it too. The weather in the United States doesn't help because you have everyone that lives up in the north, like Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, New York, Montana. All these places can only play baseball 5 months out of the year because the rest of the year you have snow and you have all this other weather to deal with.
Right.
Versus the Caribbean area, you can play baseball 12 months out of the year. Yes, you get your rain and everything, but it's going to be in the 70s to 90s all year round. You can literally play baseball 12 months out of the year. So when you're playing baseball in the Dominican Republic, that's what you're focusing. You're not focusing on playing football in the fall, basketball in the winter. It's baseball 12 months out of the year. That's what you do. Versus in this country, I don't know how many sports you did in high school, but how many people in high school play 3 different sports? They have football in the fall, basketball in the winter, baseball during the spring and into the summer, and they don't have that focus on just one sport, which is why for America, it's very hard to find someone that's going to stick with baseball 12 months out of the year because there's not too many places in the United States that offer it. Obviously, Florida, Arizona, and places like that. Texas used to be one of those places that even they get cold weather and snow now in the winter where you can't play baseball 12 months out of the year down there anymore.
And it even kind of, especially I guess a little bit more economically challenged places like the DR, like Puerto Rico, things like that. I mean, this is what these guys do to survive. I mean, they're trying to get out of where they are and get to a better spot. And so this is their whole livelihood, even from a kid's perspective. I mean, they're really engaged in trying to do something with the sport.
And the thing is with baseball, unlike any other sport, baseball's cheap. You literally need a ball, a pair of shoes, a bat, and a glove. You don't have to pay for shoulder pads. You don't have to pay for helmets. You don't have to pay for skates or any of the stuff like all these other sports do. It's a cheap sport, and you can play it anywhere. You can find an open field and play baseball. You can find an empty parking lot and play baseball. So, like you said, the people in the DR that do this, even if it's for $10,000 or $15,000 a year, which doesn't seem like a lot, $10,000 or $15,000 down there is equivalent to $50,000 or $60,000.
Oh, absolutely!
So they can live off of $10,000 to $15,000. They just need to find an open field or an open parking lot and they can start playing. That's just their livelihoods down there. That's just their lifestyle down there, and it's something that they can do because they know that's they know that 90% of the people that make it in the Dominican Republic are going to have to take on something like that because that's where the money is.
No, I definitely agree with you. Switch over to football before we get into the whole Super Bowl and what we think and that and the other. I'm kind of curious as to. I want to talk about Joe Burrow for a moment. Joe Cool, as they call him. You know, at some point, I got to be honest with you. I hate to use the word elite so cheaply, but man, what do you think about Joe Burrow? I mean, it's really his first year, and we're already kind of seeing attributes of that. What do you think?
I mean, if you compare his first 2 years to Tom Brady's first 2 years, they're very similar. So I can see why people are kind of throwing that elite status out there. But the NFL is completely different now than what it was when Tom Brady first started to play. This is a pass-heavy, pass-first league now where quarterbacks are protected a lot more. That's not to say Joe Burrow is not a great quarterback. That's not to say Joe Burrow isn't going to turn into be an elite quarterback. But if you put him in the late 90s and early 2000s when Tom Brady started, he's not going to have the same success that he's having now just because quarterbacks could get the crap kicked out of them back then. Receivers or defensive backs could actually put their hands on a receiver and make it difficult for a receiver to make a catch. Now you look at it, the quarterback gets poked in the side of the cheek, well, it's a 15-yard penalty, and if receiver gets touched by a defensive back past that 5-yard marker, I'm not talking like holding, but if a defensive back like puts his hand up on a receiver's shoulder pad at that 6-yard mark, it's 15-yard penalty or pass interference every single time. So the league is a more offensive-minded league now, which is why you see guys like Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, and a lot of these second-year quarterbacks putting up the numbers they're putting up, just because they're allowed to now. It's easier for them to do that. I do think Burrow has a shot to be an elite quarterback. I do think he's going to be a top 5 quarterback in this league for years to come. I'm just not ready to put him in that status yet, just because the league is completely different than what it was 15, 20 years ago when I want to say, what was it, 2000 or 2001 when they were, no, 2002 was the first year that the Houston Texans came back. There was only 2 quarterbacks that threw for more than 4,000 yards in 2002.
Right.
Now, it's like everybody in the league is throwing on the 4,000 yards.
That's true, though. And I see that. I think, man, I tell you what, it seems like the way Burrow has come out, if this is any indication in the next 10, 15 years, if he stays healthy, between him and Patrick Mahomes and Herbert, I mean, and Josh Allen, if you throw Josh Allen in the mix, and then, of course, Kyler Murray somewhere in there, man, I think we're in store for some really good football over the next decade and a half, to be honest with you. Beyond that, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what the next crop comes out with. But this crop is looking pretty good. And as long as this crop can stay healthy, man, we're looking at a lot of good years of football, I think, ahead of us.
Yeah, and that's something that we haven't had. Like, we had the Peyton Mannings, the Tom Brady's, the Ben Roethlisberger's, but even that generation of quarterbacks, you had 5 quarterbacks that were, like, head above everybody else. And then the other 25, 27 quarterbacks were kind of on the same playing field where neither one of them was great, and neither one of them was terrible. You look at the NFL now, Aaron Rodgers and Matt Ryan are the 2 grandpas in the league now. Rodgers is 38, Matt Ryan 36. And everybody else is like 31 years of age or younger that is a starting quarterback right now. Patrick Mahomes, to me, is still the cream of the crop in terms of what the quarterbacks are right now. But guys like Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, Herbert, Joe Burrow are right there with him. That gives us like 6 quarterbacks right there that are going to be like on that elite status for the next 10 years. Then you got Derek Carr, Matthew Stafford, Kirk Cousins, and a lot of these other guys that are putting up great numbers. They're going to be kind of on that second tier playing level where they're kind of in that 6 to 12 range in terms of quarterbacks. So half the league right now, I would say, has a quarterback that would have been considered elite 15 years ago because of the numbers they're putting up. And it just shows you the state of the NFL right now and how much more of a quarterback-driven league it is now than what it was 15 years ago. It's all about the quarterback play now, where if you have a serviceable quarterback like a Jimmy Garoppolo, you have a chance to win. If you have a good or an elite quarterback, you're going to be contending for a Super Bowl every year. There's not too many teams like 15 years ago that had that. Now it's like half the league, if not 2/3 of the league, have a quarterback capable of getting you to the Super Bowl.
True. I mean, that's very true. Um, Shifting gears a little bit, let's talk about Kamara for a minute. Obviously, the night before the Pro Bowl, he goes out and gets into an altercation, him and his entourage, because there were some comments made that he didn't agree with. And they pretty much put this guy into the hospital with a broken orbital. I think they put him into a medically induced coma, and then they brought him out. And that's when he named Alvin Kamara as the guy that did this to him. And I think that's what allowed Kamara to play in the Pro Bowl, is because the details didn't come out anywhere near in time. And then, of course, they tracked down Kamara. They arrest him. They put him in there. And he's got a March 8th court date. And I'm sure he's out on bond right now. And I think if this is his first time offense, he probably will get more like, obviously be some fines involved. And then he'll get about a year or two of probation. I'm assuming the gentleman that he assaulted is probably going to have some civil lawsuits come up against Kamara. He's going to have to settle in court with that. How do you think it's going to affect his playing career going forward? Obviously, there's going to be some levity from Goodell come down on him. What do you see in the future of Alvin Kamara?
Well, he is going to get suspended, in my opinion, for at least 8 games next year. Just because the NFL is kind of, you've seen how they've handled the domestic violence type of things recently, where it's basically one time, and I'm not going to say you're done, but a one time and you're pretty much crucified for the rest of your NFL career if you have any domestic violence type of thing. And then you look at what Henry Ruggs did, where obviously his situation is a lot worse than Kamara because he killed somebody. But Kamara could have very easily killed this person. Very easily for the injuries that this person sustained and having to be in a coma. So, obviously the person's still living, so you can't really compare that to the Ruggs situation. But it's very close to the Ruggs situation where it's a non-NFL related incident, but you inflicted physical harm to somebody for no apparent reason. Not only did you inflict physical harm, but you almost killed a guy who's probably going to have some sort of side effect for the rest of his life.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So Kamara now is in a position that he might have to serve jail time, he might not, who knows. But he's in a position now where the NFL is kind of going to have to use him as an example and basically be like, we're not going to tolerate this type of behavior anymore. No matter who it is, no matter how good of a player they are, no matter how important they are to our league. We're not going to tolerate this anymore. I'm not going to be shocked to see him suspended 8 games. I wouldn't be shocked to see him suspended for a year, honestly. Just because you have to, the types of money that these players are making, they're supposed to be role models for our kids, and they're supposed to be role models for like the younger generation that's going to be coming through in 10, 15 years to want to be like professional athletes, to want to be football players. I mean, what do you tell your kids nowadays, seeing what Henry Ruggs did and seeing what Kamara's done? Like, it's very difficult for any parent to defend any athlete right now because of the choices that a lot of these guys are making. And until something changes, you have to kind of go like to the extreme to set an example, otherwise nothing's going to change.
Oh, I definitely agree with you. And and at some point, the NFL has definitely got to take a stronger stance against this. And if you're Kamara, man, come on, Kamara, listen. This guy is probably he probably was intoxicated. Who knows what was going on with this guy to begin with? But is it really worth jeopardizing your financial freedoms, your actual freedoms for some guy who probably doesn't really amount to a whole hill of beans and is probably out there just trying to get a reaction out of you to, because I don't know, but I mean, hey, look, I'm not going to say there are people out there that try to bait you to do something so they can make money off of you. What do you think, Dust? Do you think that could be a scenario that maybe this guy's baiting them to do this so he can get paid? Because you got to think that there's people out there that do that.
Of course the person is doing that. But as an athlete, you need to know that, and you need to be smart with it. You need to know that anytime someone's baiting you into doing something like that, no matter what you do, you're going to have repercussions for it because you're going to get sued. And Obviously, the judge, the lawyer, the person knows that you have a ton of money. So if you're going to be stupid enough to let some heckler kind of get into your head to do something to the point where you're injuring somebody, you have to suffer the consequences. Just because the person that I'm not going to say the person that did that's like a low life because obviously I don't know like their home situation. I don't know what they have for a job and things like that. But anytime you have like people that do this kind of stuff to athletes, obviously they don't care what's going to happen because they have nothing to lose. They know that if the athlete does anything, well, then they can sue them for a lot of money and probably never have to work another day in their life, or they just kind of go back to their regular everyday routine if the athlete doesn't retire. So obviously, the people that do this kind of stuff have a mindset. They kind of know what they're doing ahead of time, just because they know how triggered athletes get nowadays. And as a professional athlete, you need to understand that these people are doing that to trigger you. That's why you have an entourage. That's why you have security. That's why you have bodyguards that can take care of this stuff for you, so you're not putting yourself in these type of situations.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think his entourage, I don't know if he had a bodyguard with him or if it was just a general entourage. I'm assuming it's probably just a general entourage. But people have to look out for people, man. And somebody in that entourage should have said, hey, Alvin, this dude clearly doesn't mean anything. And if you do something or if we do something, all this heat is, even if we do it and you don't do it, the heat's going to come back on you. And, and you're going to have to deal with this. Now, is it really worth a couple of comments to deal with this? I'm pretty sure it's not.
And like, it's not like he did this in like New Orleans or like Lafayette, Louisiana. He did this in Las Vegas during the Pro Bowl when all the media attention is there and when all the media attention is out in Los Angeles for the Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
If you're going to do something like this, at least do it where it's not going to be as easy for someone to notice you. It's not going to be as easy for this to come out. The fact that you did it in one of the busiest cities in the United States because of the Vegas lifestyle, that's just stupid on your part.
Yeah, because cameras are everywhere.
So even if the guy would have been beaten up to the point where he couldn't have remembered like who it was or he couldn't have remembered anything, all he would have had to say was where he was and when it happened, and that camera just noticed that it's Kamara right there. So there's no way that Kamara can even get away with it, even if the guy would have, heaven forbid, been killed. But even if the guy was unable to identify who it was, there's no way that Kamara gets away with it because there's so many cameras in Vegas that there would have been some camera that would have been able to catch him out.
And the thing about it too for me that makes it, bad was even if you're going to beat the guy up, which obviously is, as we all know, is the dumb thing to do. Do you really have to keep beating the guy after he's unconscious?
No.
Like they went beyond just beating him. The dude was done. Like he was unconscious. He wasn't getting up. And they still continued to. I don't get it, man. And that's what makes it even worse. Is the fact that you continue to beat the guy after he was unconscious. Number one, and number two, it wasn't even a one-on-one battle. It was a 3-on-1 battle, which makes it even worse.
I would even say it was a 3-on-none because do you honestly think that guy was going to swing out tomorrow? Do you honestly think he was really going to do anything? I don't. I think he was just saying stupid crap to get under Kamara's skin. So in reality, it was like 3-on-none because the guy wasn't going to do anything anyway.
Of course. Of course. And that's the whole thing. And that's why they had to be smarter than what they were. I mean, you have to look at the situation, where you're at, all the things that go into it. And I get it, man. Maybe he's just a hothead. Maybe he felt disrespected, whatever, and he felt like he needed to do something. But you know what? At the end of the day, man, you can let yourself do all kinds of things, but you're gonna have to pay for all of it. And the repercussions are so much worse than whatever insult he would have said to you anyway.
And the sad part is, look at Randy Moss, for example. Look at how much of a hothead Randy Moss was when he came into the league back when he was with Minnesota and then before he got to New England. Like, he was a hothead, and everyone knew he was a hothead.
Right.
But did you ever hear him doing anything stupid off the field?
No.
He got tickets for like traffic violations and things like that, but he never got into a fight. He never did anything stupid enough to jeopardize his NFL career because he may have been a hothead, but he was still smart enough to realize that I'm not going to throw my future away because of some idiot. And that's what these athletes need to do now. They need to look at guys like Terrell Owens, Chad Ochocinco, and Randy Moss, and just realize like how much of a hothead they were on the field, and nobody's going to tell you differently because they were hotheads. But you never really heard anything off the field about any of them. They may have gotten in trouble here and there, but it was never bad enough to the point where they were facing a suspension, or bad enough to a point where their playing career could be in jeopardy because they were still, hothead or not, they were still smart enough to know what was right and what was wrong.
Right. I mean, the only thing that was more of a bonehead, or equally to a bonehead, is when AB took off his damn jersey and skipped it across the end zone. I mean, come on.
Well, I mean,
these players are just they're out of control.
I still think AB has CTE from that Vontaze.
Oh, I'm sure he does. I'm sure.
Ever since that, I mean, he was never normal to begin with, but ever since that hit that he took, he's kind of gone off his rocker. So I think he's had so many lingering effects from that shot that.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't doubt it
anymore.
Yeah. I mean, if you're playing football, that's a very violent sport. So to say that you don't have CT or a chance of CT, that's crazy. I mean, there's got to be some level of risk for that. And obviously, given Antonio Brown's behavior, certainly would suggest that there's definitely something going on that's not normal. And I mean, and then unfortunately, of course, you can't detect CTE until you're dead. So it's all speculation until they do an autopsy on you.
I mean, you probably could detect CTE right now. You would probably just have to be okay with them operating on your brain while you're a living person to see if, because if somebody, I would say that if somebody were to allow a doctor or a surgeon to kind of go through their brain while they're still living and kind of figure out if you can actually detect CTE in a living person, it would dramatically change the medical field, and it would dramatically change the way NFL goes about things. Because if you can detect CTE on a current player that's still playing, or the player that recently retired, like Ben Roethlisberger, for example, and Tom Brady, if one of them went to a doctor and said, "Hey, can you operate on my brain to see if I have CTE?" And the way that doctor can find CTE in a person that's still playing or just finished playing, then that's going to change the way the NFL looks at things. They're going to change the way the NFL looks at hits, because if you can catch it early enough, maybe you can save some of these people.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of boneheaded decision making, let's look at the Auburn case for a moment and Harsin and what he's going through now. First year on the job, speculations of him having an affair with his assistant. I mean, what are we doing, Dustin?
Well, we are what you call a classic case of a man in higher power, thinking he has more power than anybody else on the staff, anybody else in the university, and thinking he's not going to get caught for what he's doing when you know damn well that people know what's going on. And it just takes somebody that's not afraid to say something to say something. And you look at all these cases, whether it's like the whole, like I'll use Brett Favre like as an example with Brett Favre and his trainer back when he was with the New York Jets. You know damn well that Brett Favre was using his power and kind of his NFL status to his advantage when he was doing the stuff that he did with his trainer. You know that there were so many people in that Jets organization that knew what was going on, but was just afraid to say something. All it took was for one person to say something, and then the trainer kind of came forth after that and said, "Yes, this is what's happening." So all it takes is for one person to know what's going on, to not be afraid to say something, and when they actually come out and say something, then the dominoes kind of fall after that because they finally see that someone said something that's actually been going on.
Hey, if you don't know, we're now being graced by our presence of Jay Ness. And I love how Jay Ness knows how to operate these buttons, because he magically just appeared and I didn't know where he came from. And I thought I was losing my dang mind. Hey, I'm glad you're here, man. Because, hey, listen, we were on amateur mode for broadcasting, but now I feel like we've been classed up a little bit with some professionalism. So I'm very glad you're here, Jay. Thank you. You're muted, though.
You're right. I am muted. See, I gotta catch my bearings, but I'm happy to see you guys. It's been a while. It's been a while since I've been over here. Ooh, I'm over here clicking around. But no, just to kind of jump in where you guys were at, and you made some very good points on the CTE alone. Dustin, if we could get something like that, I think that it would change a lot of things, not just for the NFL, but like you said, in the medical field in general.
If you could come up with a pill or like some sort of like a pill that a player could take to save it, you could
Because
come
let's
up
be
with
honest, Dustin. Let's be
a new
honest,
helmet
Jay.
design.
Hey, let's be honest. Who is going in their right mind is going to let you probe in the brain and have a risk of a lobotomy? I'm just saying.
Remember, Junior Seau dedicated his life basically to that.
Mm-hmm.
And, with that being said, there's people out there, bro. There's people out there that are living every day with these, I guess, for lack of better words, at this current moment, I'm gonna say demons, because that's what it turns into. Those psychological, issues. They turn into warfare inside your head, and you can't handle it. And you know what? You might be able to relate to this in the field that you've come from the background.
Joe, you lost your audio, Bubba.
My bad. It's fidgety right now. But a lot of you might be able to relate to this in the sense of the field the background that you come from, Jay, with the military. I think PTSD has some sort of form at a smaller degree of CTE. And it's in the form of, of the trauma relations. I think there's a comparison there of the CTE on that. And I think that, to Dustin's point, us being able to have someone to dedicate their living being to advancing the medical response and the informative information that we have in regards to this can really help out. Like Justin was saying, maybe we come up with a pill. Maybe we come up with a form of rehabilitation that's a physical and a mental form that maybe reduces some of the trauma that the effects of that has had on your brain. So will it necessarily make a fix all? No. But one thing about medicine, and we've seen it over decades and decades of America's existence, is a little bit goes a long way. And stepping stones is what we need to take. So I definitely think CTE is something that we need to attack. Not to kill a dead horse. I really think AB has an issue. Regardless of what,
gotta have an issue with it. He has to.
Yeah, and you know what? To say that, to make that point on, people need to also understand that I'm not giving the guy an excuse. Me and you've talked about it, Jay. Me and you've talked about it, Dustin, many times on ASAP in the morning about AB and the situations that he's been through, all the way back to when it was in the Raiders earlier in the season up until now. But people need to understand a lot of these things that we see. This dude's a millionaire. This dude has plenty of money. He's not doing this just to say, hey, look at me. Really, like, he's not doing this just to say, hey, look at me. He's embarrassing himself. He's making a mockery of his family in some of these situations. This is uncontrollable. From what I've seen, this looks like a mental breakdown almost, and more of a tactical F the world, I'm pissed off, I'm AB type of thing. So I think people need to take that into account when we do see these guys come up there, and deal with this.
And kind of what you said too, like there are people out there that you would think that would let the NFL do this. Look at Ryan Shazier, and is that guy's name like Garrett LaGrange, the guy that was with Rutgers who ended up getting paralyzed and had to
yeah.
Those two guys right there are still living, and yes, they might not have CTE, but they suffered neck injuries where their NFL playing career was cut short. Those are the guys that I could see, like, basically not necessarily telling a doctor to basically kill them, but basically giving a doctor permission to kind of operate on their brain to see if they have CTE already or if there's a way that they can detect it. And let's just say you go to a surgeon, the doctor says this is an early sign of CTE and this is where it happens in the brain, whether it's your left lobe, the right lobe, the front, or the back. So then they could let the NFL know that CTE starts in this part of your brain and then kind of circulates through. That would force the NFL to change the helmet design. So let's just say CTE starts in the front of your brain. But
Right.
then you could design a new helmet that literally specifically protects the front
Right.
of your head to maybe limit CTE, or if it starts on the right side or the left side, redesign your helmet so it protects the side of the brain that CTE starts.
Right.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Because
Yeah, that would definitely be
they're gonna
interesting.
that they once they figure out what causes CTE and once they figure out where it starts, there's going to be enough data on it where the NFL is going to be able to redesign these helmets and redesign a lot of the ways that they can prevent it. And all it takes is for one person to let a doctor kind of operate on them to just go through every inch of that brain, like internal, external, and just be like, what is different from this person's brain as opposed to this person's brain? Like, is there something that's different? Or how did it get to where it is? And then once they can figure it out, be like, hey, you need to do this with your helmets to limit the CTE, to limit the concussions, to eliminate all this stuff.
Yeah. And, you know, to bring in our all-star commenter, Damian Hernandez. No, Damian, and that's the point I was trying to make is it looks like that. It looks like the the Juju Smith situations. It looks like the Claypools. It looks like that, bro. It looks like the Victor Cruz. It looks like those things. But when you take a deep look at AB and the outbursts, there's nothing behind them. It's just a kaboom.
If you've noticed, it's all happened since that playoff game when he got crushed by
knocked the hell out. You
know, he was not normal before that.
No,
but since that hit, he's gone off his rocker, and that's kind of like all it takes is one
good hit. Yeah, one good hit,
rattle the crap out of your brain to the point where when you do the outburst that he does, he might not even realize that he's doing them until after the fact that he does them, and then he looks back and I'm like, holy crap, what did I just do?
And that's a perfect example that you brought up there, Dustin. You know, I think that all three of us on this panel right here could probably agree. We look at people like Evander Holyfield. We look at these older boxers, Muhammad Ali, George Foreman, all these guys that are taking headshots on a regular basis. And it's not like one day they were just, oh God. It gradually took time. Now, we can go and pick out boxing matches where certain people got hit in a certain way, and we know right when they got that bell rung, that was a detrimental hit to their health. And we've seen fighters get hit and die in the ring or die as a result of that blow. So when we are looking at, and I think that us as fans, especially just on that side, us as fans, you know, when we look at that, it just seems on the fact that, you know, at the end of the day, they have helmets on. So we're like, oh, they're protected. Oh, they're, you know, they fall down, they get hit hard, they get back up. And that's all good and dandy, but your brain is still rattling. Your actual organ is still rattling against this skull that you have that protected, and that does damage. Enough of those over time, it's going to make that effect. Now, that particular blow that Burfict put on AB was something special. And I don't mean it in like, let's praise it, but that particular hit was something special. And we seen it from AB. And to your point, Dustin, AB wasn't the most controlled substance before the hit. So
absolutely.
You know what I'm saying, Jay? You mix in something that's combustible, and we're gonna have some combustion going on. So that's what we're seeing.
If you watch that hit in slow motion, his neck was like a slinky. Like his chin like literally hit the center of his numbers, then his neck like went all the way back and hit his nameplate. Like his neck was like a slinky. Yeah. Like his neck was like a slinky, and I don't care who you are and like how physically gifted you are. Your neck is not supposed to bend the way his neck was bending when he was hitting the ground after that hit.
No, they're not even the same, bro. OJ and wait, are you saying OJ Simpson?
I think that's what he's saying. OJ Simpson has got to be.
Come on, Davian. Davian, come on, bro. What are we doing? We can't compare AB to let me choose my words wisely, a accused murderer. Like, come on, bro. No, I'm not even. We can't even do that. But without killing a dead horse, Jay, do you think there will be a day where we're able to identify a walking CTE case a little bit better?
I think there will be a day, because you got to figure technology is going to advance to a level where they're going to have some kind of device that's going to be able to scan your brain and be able to look for CTE type issues. I mean, they already have CAT scans they can do on you and things like that. But I think eventually they're not going to have to drill into your brain to detect CTE. I think technology will just get there eventually at some point, and we'll be able to detect it, just using technology.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be in my lifetime. I think it will be in my lifetime. I mean, we've already come a long way. I was born in 1972, and now we're in 2022. Look where we are now. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, in terms of technology, it's insane.
I think you're going to get to a point, too, where you can look at how a player was acting before a specific shot, and then after they've taken a specific shot and see how they're acting. I think then you're going to be able to kind of point to, like, this is when the problem started to happen. What happened from when he took this hit on this day, this year, as to opposed to, we'll just use Antonio Brown again. Like, you saw how he was acting before that hit. Like, he wasn't the most normal person, but he wasn't having the outbursts and the outbreaks that he was having now. Then he takes that hit from Burfict, and every year since, it seems like something has happened, whether it's staying in the cryotherapy tank for way too long when you know that you're only supposed to be in there for like 20 minutes. So why did your mind slip all of a sudden when you stayed in there for an hour? Like something happened with your brain where your brain didn't register that you were in there 40 minutes longer than you were supposed to. So now they can kind of zero it down to be like, when he took this hit by Burfict on this day, what has happened to his brain the last 6 years as to why he's gotten to the way he is now? And that kind of can give the NFL like, hey, if we ever see a player take a hit like this again, we need to not investigate it, but we need to kind of do research on them and kind of follow them more closely the rest of their career to see if anything changes. And then we can kind of know, like, this is when the issue started to happen. How does your brain look now as opposed to 5-6 years ago?
Man. Yeah, and, to your guys' points, I definitely agree. At the end of the day, it's just going to come down to being able to identify. Like, we could identify strokes by spots, things like that on your brain. There has to be some sort of correlation that we're able to identify that shows the CTE. I mean, there has to be, and I think we're working towards it. We're getting there. So real quick, let's just take a quick second, just jump into a little quick commercial break.
Yep.
Pay some bills. So give us a second. We'll be right back with you.
This is the Fox D Streaming Network. Register to come on our channel at foxdnetwork.com.
All right.
Let me ask you guys a question. So I was looking at this Olympics thing recently, and the Winter Olympics really doesn't get a whole lot of coverage like the Summer Olympics. I don't know. I'm just not really feeling the Winter Olympics too much. But I'm looking at the U.S. right now. Where the U.S. is sitting at number 10. We're at number 10 right now. We got 7 medals. We got 1 gold, 5 silver, and I think a bronze. Do you think that and Germany, I believe, right now is on top?
I think Norway is right now because they got like all the stinking goals.
Did they? Because I'm looking at it right now, and the one I pulled up was this is February. I want to say this is the most recent one where Germany has 5 golds, 3 silvers, and Norway has 4 golds, 2 silvers, and 4 bronze. They have more medals, but I think Germany has 1 more gold.
Yeah, so Norway's got the most medals at 10, but Germany's got the most.
And Austria has 10 as well, but Austria has only 2 gold, 4 bronze, and 4 silver.
Russia's got 11.
Who's the Rock? That's Russia, right?
That's Russia.
Yeah, so Rock has 11. They got 2 gold, 3 silvers, and 6 bronze. So right now, I guess if you want to look at the medal count, it would be Russia and then Austria, but Norway has the most gold out of that.
I mean, honestly, though, we're not really the biggest winter country. I mean, we're there. We're gonna place. We're gonna make our presence be known. But boy, when that Summer Olympic come around, we right up in there. We don't like the cold over here. You know what I'm saying?
That's from a true Arizonian.
Well, and you gotta look at it. And you gotta look at it too. Outside of the Rocky Mountains, there's really nowhere in the United States where you can practice Winter Olympics year-round.
Well, you got Denver. Doesn't Denver have
that's what he said. Outside of the Rockies.
Yeah, outside of the Rocky Mountains.
Well, that's true. I'm sorry. I don't know my geographic stuff. I slept during social studies and stuff.
Hey, Jay. I know you've seen. Yeah, exactly. And I know, Jay, you didn't see that Coors Light dang can light up blue before.
That's true. I have.
Don't leave that Rocky Mountain out.
Yeah, you go to.
But I used to steal beers from my grandfather. I remember them days.
Yeah, but you go to Europe and like the mountains in Europe have snow on them like 9-10 months out of the year.
Right.
People over there can practice 9-10 months out of the year. Yes, the Rockies have a lot of snow, but they don't have snow on them all year. They have snow maybe 6 or 7 months. So you can't really practice too many winter sports around here. Yes, you have hockey, but hockey's not necessarily an American sport for the men's side of things. For women, that's a different story. Women's hockey is outstanding. But the American hockey for men's really is average at best. And if you look at the Olympics, 9 out of 10 times, it's a bunch of high school or college kids that just want the opportunity because the pros don't even do it.
Hey, well, before we do, let me say this. Let's give it up for the Jamaican bobsled team for making it back to the Winter Olympics. Cool runnings, man.
And my best John Candy impersonation. I love it, man. I love it. Yeah, if the Jamaica bobsled team could compete, we should be killing it.
No, after Cool Runnings, we never made anything cool like that to put behind our Winter Olympic push. You know what I mean? So for Jamaica to have, and this is something for all the parents out there. It is your duty as a parent, your parental duty, before these Winter Olympics are gone. All of your kids need to watch Cool Runnings. All of them. And then show them why that means something and point out that Jamaican bobsled team. Because that right there is amazing. Glad they're back in there. Good to see them back. I mean, it's been a long time. And for me as a child, that Cool Runnings and that Jamaican bobsled team was actually a big thing. Because, it was the way they introduced it. They had the movie. It was like a good build-up. You don't see them often. So I'm proud to see them back up in there doing their thing.
I guess I don't know. I guess Jamaica must be below 22 then. I'm looking at I see 22. They only list like 22 countries, so I don't know if that's all the countries that competed or what.
They do. I think you have to have a minimum of 4 sports to participate in to be like counted in the group.
Oh, is that how that works?
That's the only sport that Jamaica does.
Hey, I was gonna say, Jay, we opened this up with what's going on with America in the Winter Olympics. Well, let's switch the narrative. Jamaica has absolutely no spot to practice anything to do with snow.
Well, that's true, but they can make what they can now. Hear me out on this, Jay. Hear me out.
Okay.
What they can do is they can build an ice rink like we do indoors. No. Maybe not so much the bobsled, maybe not so much the skiing. I get those events. Okay, it's gonna be very.
We gonna give them an ice skating ring though.
Hey, it's possible. It's possible. Now they can compete in the figure skating. They can compete. Anything that's what's that little thing where they put the little disc and they have to sit there and I don't know whatever that thing is called.
Curling.
Curling. Yeah. You can do curling. Hey, listen,
been working on my sweeping. There's events.
Hey, what I'm saying is there's events they can compete in it. If Jamaica government wants to put forth some money and build them an ice rink to practice on, we'll go dig up John Candy's old ass and we'll put him out there and get him starting training.
I think ASAP needs to take the initiative, and we're going to sponsor the Jamaican Winter Olympics arena.
Hey, in the arms of an angel. But 25 cents you can donate to the Jamaican ice
football should be in the Olympics, and pro ball needs to be canceled. Damien, I don't know about this one.
What other countries would play?
Yeah, what other countries compete?
There'd be like 4 countries. You'd have us.
It'd be like the Netherlands versus
Germany.
America. Can you imagine that?
You have Germany because they have the German professional league.
Well, they'd be screwed because it'd be like all of Europe on one team.
Yeah. And
let me tell you something.
I think
Japan, but who's going to get to compete for the America and the football? They won't even compete for the Pro Bowl for crying out loud. How you gonna get them to compete for the Olympics?
I got it. We'll take one out of the Summer Olympics book. You know that 3-on-3 in basketball they had started this year?
Oh yeah,
yes.
There you go.
We'll play 7-on-7 and we'll only use semi-pros.
Now that could be a possibility. Because a semi-pro you need somebody who has nothing to lose to play in the Olympics.
And the CFL. Throw the CFL in there too.
Yeah, well, the Canadian, they'll do their thing. So you got a Canadian. They'll see. We'll be probably playing the Stampedes and like one of their best teams.
But see, what y'all are missing is what you're missing is we're getting ready to start up the USFL. You can even take it from that pool and put them over there.
No. Listen, let's go with the XFL. I think it'll be more entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, possibly you're right. I mean, they do a lot of craziness over there.
Can you imagine Vince McMahon covering the Olympics?
Oh
my God! Look at that tackle, America.
Well, look at the following that PJ Walker got in the XFL.
Right.
Can you imagine if he would have did that in the Olympics and the kind of following that he would have gotten just off of that alone?
It would have been a wrap.
He would have signed probably a 10-year NFL contract just because of the following, knowing that he was going to get marketed and publicity for whatever team he went to.
Yuki, you know what's a coincidence about that is to me is ever since they kind of stopped NFL Europe, the NFL has gotten way more traction in Europe than when they had the NFL Europe. Like, I don't understand it.
I didn't understand that either. That doesn't make sense to me.
We gave you guys football. You didn't want it. We took it away. Now you're like, where did it go?
So are you guys on board for having the Olympics more frequently?
More than what?
More frequently. So instead of having a 4-year break, basically have the Winter Olympics this year, have the Summer Olympics next year, have the Winter Olympics in 2024. Just because, or not even calling them the Olympics, but do more of like, because you always hear like during the Olympic broadcast that people are talking about the skiing World Cup and how this person just won like the World Cup leading up to the Olympics. Why don't they do something where they can broadcast more of these World Cup events? Just because I like to see sports that we don't have. Like skiing, we're not known for skiing, but like Europe, they're obviously known for skiing. I think getting more attention around like the World Cup events, not even just leading into the Olympics, because the year leading into the Olympics is when you start to see everything. So why not show these more frequently to just get more of an Olympic following with it?
The ASAP Pussycat walking across the screen. Everybody say hello to the ASAP Pussy. No, but to your point though, Dustin, I'm a 50-50 on this one because I don't think we should have more Olympics. I do think we should emphasize the World Cups to give people that like the Olympics understanding of who the hell is coming.
Because the year before the Olympics is when we start to see like all the track stuff. The year before the Winter Olympics is when we start to see all the speed.
What's the World Cup? Is that every 2 years as well? Is a World Cup every 4?
Yeah, for soccer. Yeah.
Well, for soccer,
it's every 2 because the women, and then 2 years later it's the men. So
but they also got FIFA, and then they got I forgot the name.
CONCACAF.
Yes, yeah. So there's like 4 of them. See, soccer is great.
Yeah.
See, what I think, and to go to your thing, my other 50%, I would definitely take a soccer approach for the World Cup of these other sports. Because, like, to Jay's point, Jay's question is a question that I think that 90% of America has. Oh, well, is that just soccer, or is that like the soccer does? Or because soccer is the only thing we know with the word World Cup.
That's true. That's all I ever paid attention to.
And for 4 years, you actually get to watch matches. Because like every 3 months, they do like a World Cup qualifier. And then like 3 months down the road, they do another tournament. So like over that 4-year stretch, you're getting to watch everything that leads up to it.
Damien, all right. I was waiting for somebody to bring this up because this was my next thing. Rugby and football are not the same. First of all, they're not even close.
Not even close.
Hey, rugby is like a collision of soccer and football together.
Yeah, very much
and
so.
hockey.
And hockey. Yeah,
but you don't have the pads.
A bit of lacrosse.
Yeah, a bit of lacrosse.
A bit of lacrosse too. But the other thing about rugby that you have to understand when we're talking about global, rugby is completely global. Cricket will have a better chance of getting into the Olympics than football. Like, these things are global. You can go to almost any other country around the world, and you're going to find these 2 sports we just mentioned. You go to any other country around the world, you say football, they're going to tell you half the world is going to say soccer and throw you a soccer ball when you say football. And then half the world is going to say, I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
And is that an issue with NFL, NBA, MLB not branding their sport globally to get it out there to where we could get to that level? Like cricket?
Not really, because you have to look at when the stuff is played too. Why do you think it took baseball so long to come back to the Olympics? The Summer Olympics happened right in the middle of baseball season. Right. How many players are going to leave their team in the United States for a month to go play in the Olympics?
How many American teams are going to allow their player that plays for another country nationally to leave the team and go play for the Olympic team and forego all this money that they're supposed to be forking out for them?
And you look at the NBA, that's why they can play in the Summer Olympics, because that's their off-season. They don't do anything during July and really August besides free agency.
And take this into account too. When we're talking about this, rugby and cricket, even these stadiums don't have to be as big as a football arena. So when you're talking about why, or to your question directly, Jay, is it the NBA and the NFL's fault? No, because that means that after the marketing, they got to go to these countries and set up camp. Because then once you market, what are we doing with it? Because there's nowhere for them to watch it. There's nowhere for them to play it. There's nowhere for them to get involved. So why waste the money marketing to a place where then you have to go, and now that you market over there, you got to bring that to them in order to keep what you've marketed alive. You know what I'm saying? So I think that at the end of the day, to your point, Jay, I don't think we should market, but I do think like Luka, Dirk Nowitzki, Pau Gasol, these type of players, we need to capitalize, and we should go to like Germany and make a Dirk Nowitzki center.
Let me ask you a question. How is it then, I guess based on everything you're saying, how is it then that soccer is able to do all this globalization?
It's global. It's a global sport. It translates to every language, translates to every country, translates everywhere, and it's one of the longest sports in the world. It's one of the oldest sports in the world.
Well, I get it. And so are we basically saying that football, baseball, basketball, those just are not translatable to the rest of the world then?
No,
they were American.
Soccer's like the only sport that you can play anywhere because all you need is a ball.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah, and I get it. So it is more economically friendly than for, like you said, third world countries. Maybe all they can get is a ball and a patch of grass
and a trash can.
Yeah, that's literally all you need for soccer is a ball and then something to kick it into. Whether it's a bed
You don't
sheet,
even
whether
need
it's a
two
one-
goals.
No, you need one. You need like a bed sheet that you can hang from a tree, a laundry basket, or a garbage can, or two garbage cans that you line up like 5 feet apart. That's all you need for soccer. That's why it's global, just because anybody can play it anywhere, any
So-
weather condition, anything.
See, and that's the thing. If you think about it like this, Jay, if we go to Mexico, we go to a third. I'm not going to say Mexico. We got to go deeper. We go to a third, just like
Guatemala.
Guatemala. We go to Guatemala and we say, hey, this is football. And we introduce the sport. They can love it all they want. Who's going to buy their helmets? Who's going to buy their cleats? Who's going to buy the ball? Who's going to keep that stuff up? Who's going to buy a field goal post? Who's going to buy the goal line? And that's why football is not as translatable. And,
Well, it's probably even more than just that, though, Jay, because who's gonna designate the amount of field space and build the stadium
Right.
too?
right.
I think it's more of a stadium issue
Yeah.
in
Well,
terms
no,
of
it's
how
not
would you do
only-
that
it's
in
not
any of
only
these
that,
countries.
And the kids.
And yeah, it's not only that. How big is Guatemala as a country?
Right.
Yeah.
4 million people. How many people are going to be wanting to play football? Like, how many teams do you realistically think that Guatemala would beat?
Right.
Maybe 3, maybe 4.
And it's easier to get a soccer team together
because you only need 20 people. If you
yeah,
have
and they
11
don't have to buy.
That's not a fair comparison.
have to
Guatemala
buy-
doesn't really compete in much of anything. I think they're
But-
mostly out there. I think they're doing craziness out there in
But you
Guatemala.
can
I don't know. I've never been to Guatemala, but I don't really know too many teams out of Guatemala. Can anybody name me one team out of Guatemala? Any sport?
I'm sure they have a soccer team.
Their soccer team is ranked 14th in the country, or 14th in the nation. Their soccer
See?
team is not bad.
And that's the thing, Jay. Like we can pick out the lowest as far as economical countries, and I guarantee you they have a soccer team.
Oh, they do. At some level, I'm sure they
Trinidad
do.
and Tobago and Nigeria. Look at how good Nigeria usually is for the World Cup, and they have one of
Yeah.
the poorest nations in the world. But yet they
But-
always seem to
but
make the final
To me and Dustin's point earlier in the show, we were talking about this. Baseball has transcended though down into the Latin American communities though. So at least they are kind of sort of translating down in there. At least baseball is for that.
Yeah,
matter.
that's what I don't know if Jay caught it when I said that too. But if you look at like especially Cuba, Dominican Republic, and Venezuela, they can start playing professional baseball at 16 years old. Even if it's like what $10,000-$15,000 a year, that $10,000-$15,000 a year down there is equivalent to $40,000 to $50,000 a year up here. So what they're making at 16 years old is going to be
Right.
enough for them to live off of for a year or two. That's
And-
why
and-
you have such a big Latin American baseball community now, just because you can start at such a young age.
And this is the thing too. I'm gonna put baseball and soccer in the same category. There's so much money in those two sports, and because of that, it allows you to have a professional team and that team making money. It allows you to have a team right underneath that's not quite the professional team, but they're still professional and people love them and they're making money. And then a third team that's right around, just coming in. There's so much availability for money in soccer and so much availability for money in rugby and these other sports. Because again, Jay, you can get off your couch right now, grab your soccer ball, go outside and play soccer. If you want to play football, when you get off that couch, you need to go grab your helmet, your gloves, your cleats, your mouth guard, you're this, you're that, you're this, and then go outside. So it's a totally different game in the equipment, the cost, the upkeep, all that
And-
stuff is so much lower.
And soccer's the one sport too outside of basketball that you can play by yourself.
Right.
Hey,
You can literally just grab the ball
just
and
for
play
fair
football.
warning, listen, I don't know. Now, Jay, you're a little bit more on the cushier side of life. Dustin, I think you are too. You guys probably do need those pads and things of that nature. In my day, listen, all I need is
I
a
played
football.
soccer for
Hold on
19
now.
years.
All I need is a football and go down to my local high school or YMCA and borrow their field with about 8 of my other friends, and we will have a battle royale. Now, listen, 3 of us might wind up in the hospital in the ER with broken bones, but damn it, for that first 25 minutes, we're out there with just a ball
Jay.
and having a good time.
Jay, I hate to say it. Guys like us are the reason why we ignore CTE.
That's true.
That's
true.
I played soccer for 19 years.
You want to talk about some
Different
CTE?
Right, Dustin? Like, and that's the
I
thing.
played soccer 2 years in the college. That's why I have a different kind of respect for it than a lot of people do, because I actually know how much hard work it takes. It's a lot
No,
harder. It's a lot harder than what people give it credit for, just because
What,
of how
soccer?
endurance you have, how much endurance you have to have. It's a lot more physical than what people give it credit for, just because your legs, your knees, your ankles take a absolute beating. And people just realize, like, oh yeah, you're not getting tackled. I would rather be tackled by a 300-pound human than have someone slide at me at 15 miles an hour with cleats going at my knees.
Dustin, before you say that, have you ever been tackled by a
Yes,
325
I
pound
have been
dude?
tackled by a 300-pound human. And
It really hurts a
It
lot.
hurts for about 45 minutes to an hour, and then you're fine. But if you get slide tackled in the knee, it can hurt for about 6 months.
I will say this. I played soccer a lot growing up. That was one of my favorite sports. What you just said really pinpointed a lot about soccer players, the stamina.
Oh yeah, it's brutal.
And soccer players, they fight a lot. Cause that shit hurts. You kick me, you kick me with your freaking cleat in my damn shin, and it don't catch my shin guard. Yeah, and it don't catch my shin guard for the next 10 minutes. I'm trying to hurt you.
Yep.
I'm looking for you the whole time. Like, give me an opportunity to put this shoulder into this.
But, and it's very difficult. I think a lot of people don't understand what I never understood till I went out there and played a little bit. My at the time ex-wife was playing. She played female soccer for University of Houston, and I would go out with the men's soccer team at Houston. And I would just play around with them until their games or their practice actually started. And what I realized was it is very difficult. It is very technically hard to control a ball with your feet than it is with your arms.
Exactly. And
it's hard. That's damn hard.
Like, everyone thinks that kicking a ball
hell with the running. You know how hard it is to run?
By 7 foot.
When they have a ball, and you got to control a ball, you got to stop with the ball, you got to. It's hard.
And if you watch some of these good players like Ronaldo, Messi, Balotelli, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and all these people, when they kick a ball, it's like physics. Everyone thinks that.
Dustin, Yuki needs an answer.
No, I don't flop, because when you flop, you are more likely to get
hurt.
No, well, that too, but you're more likely to get carded by the official because they can see that you're flopping. You're more likely to have people purposely go after you because they can see that you're flopping, which leads to more injuries.
Hey, I will say this, and Dustin, you'll probably agree with me. It's like in soccer, there's like this certain thing, man. As long as you show respect for the sport, the players show respect for you.
Yeah.
Because we all know what you're doing out there. And us sliding at you is part of the game, but it hurts. And not everyone is trying to go at you. Yeah, and not everyone's trying to go after you. But I'm sorry, 9 times out of 10, if I'm sliding, you're gonna get hit.
Yeah. And that's what you said too, Jay. Like, everyone knows that if you're going to get slid into, whether it's from behind, whether it's from the side or whatever, it's going to hurt. So when you see all these soccer players that, like, someone slides at them and they, like, grab their ankle and roll around for 45 seconds, like, you have the media and everybody make a big deal about it and say that they're flopping and this and that. I want one of these media members to stand on a soccer field and take a slide tackle from Ibrahimovic. And you can tell me how much that it doesn't hurt after that 230-pound human goes through you. That's why no soccer player is really going to make a big deal about it. They're going to let you kind of do your 45 seconds to a minute thing rolling on the ground, like making sure your ankle's still attached, and then they know that you're going to get up and walk it off. But everyone knows that everyone's going to do that. If you get hit hard enough in a certain spot, it's going to hurt. It's not going to be something that you can just get up and walk off. You have to lay there and be like, is my foot still attached to my body? Is my knee still attached to my leg? Yes. Okay, now give me a second.
And then just to kind of throw it out there as well, it's just like baseball. Getting up in that batter box and trusting a pitcher is going to throw that fucking ball 95 miles per hour in that strike zone and not slightly 1.5 inches to the left or right and at your face. It's nerve-wracking sometimes, especially, I don't know if you guys have ever been in there with a guy that throws a mean curve or a mean knuckler. Them shits is, you better trust yourself to be able to.
I tried 80 miles an hour in a batting cage, and I was afraid of that. I'm just like, all right, we're done here.
Yeah, and if you don't, trust that, in those curves can make you think they're coming at your face, and then we're at the last second, zoop. So, you know what I mean? There's a lot to it. on all different sides of the fence. And, you know, just to go back to what we even started on this, we love the Olympics. We all would love to change some things about it, but the Olympics are set up in a certain way to cater to the world as a whole. And it's not about America. It's not about Germany or Russia. It's everyone. So it'll never be perfect. Our seasons run all different, and we just got to take it for what it is and enjoy, you know, the caliber of competition that is displayed to us and given to us. So
I just the only thing that I don't like about it, and obviously there's nothing and there's no physical way that you could ever fix this or change it. If you look at where the Olympics are right now, you know, China. How many live events do we actually get to watch? Realistically, how many live events do we get to watch during this Olympics right now? Maybe 2 or 3.
Winter,
because they're
like
12,
3 or 4.
Yeah, because they're like 12 hours ahead of us. So when it's like midnight by us, that's when their Olympics are actually starting right now in China. So most of the stuff that we actually get to watch is between 3 o'clock in the afternoon and 8 o'clock at night. How many people are still working until 5 o'clock at night? So there's very seldom any live events that we get to see.
Well,
obviously, there's no way to change that because of the time difference. But that's kind of the one thing that is always so difficult to watch the Olympics. Why I kind of want to adapt more to that World Cup thing where you can see all the Olympic activities leading up to the Olympics because it gives you a chance to see more of these live events that you might miss being at work or being out of time difference.
Now I'll blame that on America because I think America could do a better job of replaying those events during the day.
They still do, but we only have like 4 channels where we can actually watch.
But that's my point.
Yeah,
dude. Growing up, it was on NBC.
Yep.
Growing up, if the Olympics are on, we knew it was on because it was on NBC. There wasn't no online. There wasn't no this. There wasn't no that. We saw the Olympics and it was on TV.
Right.
Everything's about money today, and that's why we can't watch shit.
And now if you look at it, the Olympics are still on NBC. But if you go through the channel guide, it says figure skating, speed skating, downhill skiing on the same channel. You don't know what you're going to watch until you turn on the channel. You might get downhill skiing, you might get figure skating. You don't know.
Or you might get 2 guys in the woods trying to cut a tree down and see who's the fastest.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You get 3.
Hey, you know what? Hey, real quick, one thing that I've noticed is, and since when we just came off of celebrating Women in Sports Week and everything, is it just me or are the men's national team really lagging behind the women's national team?
Soccer?
Yes.
Oh, that's a known fact.
Soccer and hockey.
Like, what's up with the men? Why can't the men, step up their game like the women have?
Because the disparity in the countries and the competition level in the other countries is way bigger. Yep.
And that's the big issue too.
We'll never catch it.
If you look at all of the good men that play soccer, 95% of them go to Europe. Like Christian Pulisic, all the good players that are on the U.S. national team go play soccer in Europe. But then when we have our World Cup qualifiers and we have our Gold Cup, all those good players are still staying in Europe because their European teams don't want them to leave. You look at the United States national team, Europe and the United States are the only 2 countries that actually have a professional women's league. Mm-hmm. So 90% of our good players stay in the United States playing in the NWSL. So when they have their World Cup,
the ASAP pussy had to make one more appearance before the show was over.
So
sometimes she gets like that.
So when you have your World Cup qualifying for women, 90% of their team is in the United States, so they can get together. They can play their World Cup qualifying together. So they have all these games together where they're gelling, where they're learning how to play with each other, where they're learning how to play with their coach versus the men. I think I saw, what was it? The U.S. had 24 World Cup qualifying matches over the last 2 years.
Right.
Only 4 of those 24 matches were with the team that they would bring to the World Cup. So they have no way to play together because these European teams don't want to release their good players for 2 weeks and bring them back.
You know what else is a big thing, Dustin? Since me and you are digging in on this, the day we have a 17 and under World Cup team that gets notoriety like the Mexico 17 and under World Cup team every single year is the Olympics or the World Cup that I'm looking at for us to do something.
We have, I think, a 19 team.
But he's all right.
Yeah,
I mean, our
well,
19U, but the Mexico's 17U team has been good and good and good and good and good. I mean, Chicharito, when Chicharito was on there, he was killing shit. And then, you know what I'm saying? Like, we have to, dude, name 2 people from the American squad right now.
Weston McKinney and Christian Pulisic.
But I can't. Weston McKinney, I can go with you on. But after that, there's not super big names. And you'd pick out any of these other national teams that we've mentioned, there's super big names on every single one of them. So
Right.
to answer your
what you said too about the 17U team, you're starting to see more of that in Major League Soccer. Chicago Fire's goalie is
right.
Luis Lavinia or whatever. He's got dual
He's young.
citizenship. He's got citizenship in Venezuela where he was born, and he's lived in the United States for 5 years, so he can play on whatever
national team he wants.
He started at 16 years old in the MLS this year playing for the Chicago Fire. So he's going to be on a 17U team, whatever team he wants to be on, but you're starting to see a lot more of these young 16, 17-year-old players start to play in the MLS now, which I think is going to help our 17U team because they're getting that professional experience at such a young age.
Right. Well, guys, we hold up. Did Jay just call him Chicharito?
Chicharito.
Hey, David, it's still early for me, man. But no, but you got me off. Damien, darn it, you did knock me off my freaking spot. I was about to say something. Just totally messed up my whole feng shui. But you know, we did run over a little bit. We really appreciate you guys tuning in.
We didn't run over. We just started like 30 minutes later. We had to figure out how to use Stream, right?
And that's my fault. That's my fault.
But we're still technically 19 minutes.
Hey, listen. We was a little rough this morning.
Hey, you know what? It happens. It happens to the best of us. You know what? But that's why we're ASAP, because we keep it going and we work through that. You know, we fight through that. But no, man. I know, Damien. I know it was Rito. I know, Damien. Dang it. You know, Damien, you ain't never gonna let me slip up and get it past. Like, you always gonna make sure to call me out every single time, man. One day we gonna get your ass on the show so we can catch you up, Damien, because you always there to catch us. No, but
he ain't gonna let you slide, brother.
No, man. Not even if I had some sliders on my feet. What were those things we used to use when we were kids? Little rollers. What were they called? Or when they had the shoes with the little rollers on the bottom.
Oh man, rollerblades.
The little willies. Were they willies?
Yeah.
Whatever they were called.
They still make those.
Hey, Jay, how old are you, Jay?
35. Don't be on air, man.
No, you're 35, and I'm 49. I didn't remember the wheelie things coming out. You're talking about the little wheels on the end of your shoe, right? On the back of your shoe?
Yeah, you pull down the back of your heel and then you just pull on your heel.
My kids had that. I never had nothing like that when I was. Man,
I didn't wear them.
Jay young as hell. Jay just a super young guy. So Dustin. Both you guys wearing diapers, man.
I'm gonna take that as a compliment, you know, I'm trying to keep the little baby face going, Jay. I'm trying to stay this way until I hit 50, you know what I'm saying?
Dustin got that baby face. Dustin probably about maybe 21, 22.
Hey, Yuki, that's what I'm shooting for, man. That's what I'm shooting for. Yeah, we about to stay mid-20s.
That's what it is. From now on, Dustin is Babyface Siri. That's his new name, Babyface Siri.
Baby Stat?
Baby Stat. Yeah, we can go with I'm going to Baby Stat. He changed Dustin's name every other day, man. I mean... Poor Dustin.
Hey, Damien, look, it is not Low Blow Wednesdays. What's going on this morning? Hey. It is not Low Blow Wednesdays.
poor Dustin, he just got his voice back, so now he can't really go all the way out. So,
right. No, but again, yep, Yuki, you know, at times we don't meet eye to eye, but on this, both San Francisco and the Cardinal fans can both agree after the Rams. Yeah, we're going to exit up out of here. Again, catch us every single weekday.
I'm gonna make your guys' head swim with the stat of the day, which is kind of funny.
Hey, before we go, let's get the start of the day.
Yes, we didn't even get to that. Stat of the day.
So Kelvin Johnson, known as probably one of the 10 best wide receivers in NFL history, probably even though he only played 10. Back in 2003, he finished runner-up in the state of Georgia for the Gatorade High School Player of the Year for that state. Can you guys name who got the Player of the Year in the state of Georgia for 2003?
The state of Georgia, 2003.
God, I don't even know. My Georgia history don't go that far back.
State of Georgia. Was it a running back?
I think he played tight end.
Tight end.
Tight end and running back. He was smaller, but he was pretty stocky. No cheating, Jay. Put the phone down.
I'm out. I'm out.
I am. I'm over here fast typing.
I tried. I can't dig it.
So 2003, Georgia High School Football Player of the Year was Sean McVay.
Sean McVay.
This
Wow.
That guy. Baby stat, you guys. Baby stat.
Yeah, that's why we call him Baby Stat.
And Sean McVay ended up, starting a total of like 10 games in college. So once he got to college, he pretty much did nothing, and Kelvin Johnson took off. It just goes to show you that depending on what program you play in high school, you might be better than Kelvin Johnson.
Or it also goes to show you that if you're good in high school and suck in college, you might just be a coach.
There you go. There, that's a good stat too now.
But no, with that being said, we hope you guys enjoyed another episode of ASAP in the Morning. It was my pleasure to see you guys again this morning. It's been a little bit, been on the grind. If you guys haven't seen, please keep it locked on Tiki Live, Viva Live, Roku, Amazon Fire, Samsung, LG, wherever you watch us, keep it locked. We got Super Bowl coverage all week. Darren Smith, one of our ASAP guys down there, ESPN radio. He's going to be Super Bowl radio row all week. Tune in. Stars stop by all the time. Yesterday, he had Dana White over there, messing with Dana a little bit. He had The Miz from the WWE. So all that great content is going to be on Tiki Live. You guys catch it there. Of course, my man up top left, Undisputed, Unscripted. I always want to say Shannon because, but Unscripted just started live on Tiki Live this week. Please catch him. He'll be Tuesdays, Thursdays, and
7.
Saturdays.
Yes, sir.
So again, keep it locked. And then, if you haven't seen Baby Stats show, he has a show that he does once a week. In fact, we haven't even seen what's his name in a couple of weeks. He's been doing his schooling. Say that again.
Come on.
Yeah. We haven't seen him in a week or so because he's been doing schooling on ASAP in the Morning. But Ahmad and Dustin, they do their own show throughout the week as well. I mean, dude, we got plenty of content for you guys. Whatever it is that you guys want, it's pretty much here. So definitely keep it locked. And definitely add us on Roku, add us on Tiki, like the page, leave us a review. We appreciate it, But other than that, before we go, any last words for any of you guys?
Hey, real quick, me and Tony Hollingsworth are going to be doing a Cowboys show that will be, you can find us on ASAP YouTube. I think we're going to try to do it at least one show every 2 weeks. So at least 2 shows a month. We're going to try to, do a little Cowboys recap, see where they are. And I know ASAP's got other breakdowns of other NFL teams. So check us out on YouTube for NFL team breakdowns.
Yes, and if you haven't already, visit the ASAPSportsNetwork.com website. A lot of new articles are up. The new articles go up daily. Shout out to our new writers, Lynn and Chris, Brandon, Daryl. There's a few others out there, so please tune into their articles as well. Show them some love as well. Other than that, we are out until tomorrow. So long, guys.
Whole sports all plays. Yeah. Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. 360 365, we making a place. You talking the game, get you through the days. Behind the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, they working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making a place. You talking the game, get you through the days. Behind the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, they working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. We on top of our game. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays.